Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, and I have a very special video today where I'm going to be going over my picks for Game of the Year for the last 25 years, going all the way back to the year 2000. And I will be comparing it to the Game Awards picks for Game of the Year. Now, since the show itself, whether as the Game Awards or its previous incarnations, didn't exist prior to 2003, my first three picks will just be my personal preference, as well as what I think probably would have won, and then after that I'll be comparing it and giving my picks, because my picks differ almost every single year for Game of the Year with the Game Awards. But if you wouldn't mind, please liking and subscribing. I would really appreciate it. This one took a ton of extra time, prep work and post work and everything. I would really appreciate the subscribe. We're less than 50 subscribers away from 1,000. It would mean the world to me if we got to 1,000 before the end of June. So that out of the way, let's get into the year 2000, which is a pretty darn good year for gaming. You had games like Zelda Majora's Mask, you had Jet Set Radio, you had Perfect Dark, Shenmue, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. All fantastic picks that I think could have won. Jet Set Radio is one of my favorite games of all time. One of the most beautiful cel-shaded art styles. It still holds up to this day. I've played this one on multiple platforms. I loved it on the Dreamcast as Jet Grind Radio in the US. I loved playing it on the Vita when it launched there, but I really love that game. Perfect Dark is another phenomenal entry, a really great spiritual successor to GoldenEye. In most people's eyes, I think they would say it's even a better game overall. You have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, which is a all-time classic. Shenmue is just something gorgeous and spectacular, like a beautiful piece of history. Even though it hasn't maybe held up nearly as well, it was still really special at the time. But my pick is going to be Majora's Mask, just because of what it did to evolve the series. It took it in a completely different direction. It was very dark, very different, and despite being a direct sequel to Ocarina of Time, it had wildly different gameplay mechanics, and I actually like it even better than Ocarina of Time in almost every single respect. This one has become a cult classic because it's just so phenomenal. Now for the year 2001, we've got games like Conker's Bad Fur Day, Grand Theft Auto 3, Halo, you've got Smash Bros. Melee, you've got the first Jak and Daxter game. A huge year for gaming. You could absolutely make a case for Halo. I think a lot of people would say Halo is the best game of the year. 100% agree with that perspective. It's like revolutionized first-person shooters in so many ways, especially multiplayer. You also had GTA 3, which was revolutionary for the open world format. You've got stuff like Smash Bros. Melee that revolutionized party games in terms of like how a fighting game and a party game can coexist. Jak and Daxter was a phenomenon in terms of like platforming. But if you know this channel and you know me at all, you know my pick is going to be Conker's Bad Fur Day. Despite the phenomenal games going up against it, I think there's nothing quite like Conker. It's such a special experience. It's so humorous. It's got great platforming. The context-sensitive buttons are still phenomenal to this day. The voice acting is hilarious. They just did something that I've never seen any other game do before or since. I think this game is so unique. I really just wish we had a sequel. So Conker is going to be my number one pick for Game of the Year in 2001. Now let's move on to 2002. Another great year for games. You had stuff like Vice City, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Prime, Time Splitters 2, the Resident Evil remake on the GameCube, and Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem. Phenomenal picks. Eternal Darkness was a phenomenal horror game, messed with your mind, messed with a lot of things like turning the screen blue, saying your memory card was corrupted, all sorts of stuff to mess with the player's mind. Really beautiful and surreal. I've never seen anything quite like it. The Resident Evil remake was phenomenal, really gritty and dark. I love what they did with the graphics on the GameCube. It looks phenomenal to this day. Time Splitters 2 is one of the best arcade games I've ever played. It feels very much like GoldenEye, like Perfect Dark. It just is so much fun to play. Some of the best multiplayer I've ever had the opportunity to play with. I also really loved Metroid Fusion. Man, that game is phenomenal. It's my favorite like 2D Metroidvania game ever. I just think it's so solid. Maybe with Metroid Dread outclassing it, maybe just a little bit, but Fusion was so good. And you've got, of course, the Vice City, which is a great iteration on Grand Theft Auto 3. But my pick is going to be Metroid Prime. And I think most people would agree with this pick. This one like revolutionized the series itself, and bringing it into 3D came with a lot of problems for Nintendo. They had a lot of hard work to even get the Morph Ball to work. They almost gave up on it at one point. And the fact that they brought it together and put together a masterpiece at the same time is just out of this world insane. Retro Studios really needs to be congratulated for how phenomenal that game is. And I think it really goes to show how well it was received on the Switch with Metroid Prime Remastered. I think this stands as one of the greatest games of all time. Now let's move on to 2003. Now this is where the first like Game Awards Game of the Year came out, so I'll be comparing against them. I think their pick was really wild in Madden 04. especially with the game class that came out that year. But Madden 04 was great. I did like the sports games of the time. I remember playing a lot of the old ones. Apparently this one was good enough to win a Game Award. But going up against stuff like Wind Waker, The Sands of Time, KOTOR, Aria of Sorrow, Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, Beautiful Joe even, I can't believe a game like Madden 04 won over all of these other ones. Aria of Sorrow is one of the best Metroidvanias of all time. I absolutely adore that game. I think Beautiful Joe is one of the most underrated games of all time. I love the cell shading. I think they did a phenomenal job with that. Really great character work, great like cutscene work and everything. The way that it feels like a comic book and like a movie really works for me especially. Knights of the Old Republic is one of the coolest games I've ever played. Most people hail it as the best Star Wars game of all time for good reason. You've got The Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, one of the best 3D platformer games ever made, with a rewinding time mechanic being absolutely amazing. I've never seen something like that in a game since. It was really hard to pick one here. My pick is going to be Wind Waker, though. Wind Waker would be my favorite game of all time if it wasn't for A Link to the Past. I absolutely adore this game. I think it's the pinnacle of 3D Zelda games, even with Breath of the Wild, even with Tears of the Kingdom. I think Wind Waker is where they really made something truly unbeatable in that space. I think they've never made a better 3D Zelda game since Wind Waker. I think that's a crazy opinion for a lot of people, but if you play it on the Switch too with the GameCube releases, I think you'll see why. The sailing is a really cool mechanic. The fact you have like just open sea to go explore, tons of different locations, the boss fights are immaculate. The Wind Waker mechanic itself and directing the wind and using different songs to control things, use the tornadoes to fast travel, is just so special. I think they have some of the best dungeon work they've ever done, and Zelda is notorious for the best dungeons in all of gaming. They just really killed it with this game. Couple that all together with a cell shading art style that just remained timeless. I think Wind Waker is so hard to beat here. I had a very tough time though. I did consider KOTOR. I did consider Sands of Time as my two main contenders here, but ultimately, how can you beat another Zelda game? Wind Waker was just that special. Let's move on to 2004. This was a crazy one. For the Game of the Year, the Game Awards pick for Game of the Year, they went with San Andreas, which is my personal Grand Theft Auto favorite game of all time. I love San Andreas in the Grand Theft Auto world. I think it's really special in terms of what they did with the story, with the character work. I think they really just outdid themselves in every conceivable way. I also really like the art style. It feels very timeless. I think it just works best. It's the best of the original trilogy on the PlayStation 2. I think they really just did it all exactly well, especially with the cheats and everything. Jetpacking around the city was so phenomenal. Now, if you consider the games that came out this year, though, you might have your work cut out for you picking a Game of the Year. You had Half-Life 2, first and foremost, one of the best games of all time. You have Halo 2, you had Metroid Prime 2, guess it was a good year for sequels. Pikmin 2, which I don't think really stood a chance, but I wanted to throw out there because I really love it. You had The Thousand Year Door, and you had Metal Gear Solid 3. Holy crap, that's a huge stacked draft class here. It would be almost impossible to pick if Half-Life 2 wasn't just the runaway best game on this list. No shade at Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, no shade at MGS3, which is probably the best game in the entire franchise. No shade at Thousand Year Door, which is the best Mario RPG for most people. I just don't think you can beat Half-Life 2. The way that it has stood the test of time with its phenomenal physics engine, the poignant story that it tells, the phenomenal environmental storytelling that it does, it's just perfect. It really is. If you go back and play this game to this day, the fact that it came out in 2004 will probably blow you away. That's how you feel like with a lot of Valve games from that era. It just holds up so perfectly. So I don't think I could do anything else except Half-Life 2 in the slot. Even if I wasn't like a big PC player, I know this game and I know it very, very well, and I don't think anything beats it from that year. 2005 was another pretty good draft class here. The Game Awards winner was Resident Evil 4, which I think is a phenomenal pick. I mean, if you look at the other games that year, you also had God of War, Dragon Quest VIII, Psychonauts, and Shadow of the Colossus. Phenomenal games across the board. I think it was a little bit weak after that. I didn't find nearly as many like big hitters that year, but going up against Resident Evil 4 would be a tall order. However, Shadow of the Colossus was phenomenal. It told like a really, really interesting story. primarily boss fights and like puzzle solving skills. That was the primary objective of the game, coupled with gorgeous visuals for the time. That one would be really hard to beat. You also had Psychonauts, which is still one of the most like cerebral, interesting games I've ever played. You also had Dragon Quest VIII, which is one of the best in the entire franchise. And for Square Enix to put out a huge hitter like that, it's hard to beat that. You also had God of War, which was kind of like this revolutionary hack and slash game that just really took the world by storm. But my pick is also going to be Resident Evil 4. I love Resident Evil. That's one of my favorite franchises of all time. And 4 is the best one in that entire series to this day, not even including the remake. I think it's better than all the remakes. I love Resident Evil 4. There's not much more I can say about it. Go check out my videos on Resident Evil 4. Its comparison against the remake. I have tons of videos on the topic if you want to hear more, but Resident Evil 4 is the clear takeaway for me. Next is going to be 2006, which had a pretty good draft class. The Game Award ultimately went to Oblivion, which I think is a very solid pick. I did not play Oblivion back in the day. It took me a long time to play it. When I did, I enjoyed it. I never finished it, so I can't give it to Oblivion just based on that. So if all the Oblivion heads out there, especially the people that have just played the remake, I know it's fantastic. I just never finished it, so it's not going to be my personal pick. Other games included Gears 1, Twilight Princess, Half-Life 2 Episode 1. You also had Bully and Mother 3, as well as Okami. Fantastic games. Okami went down as like the worst selling game of the year winner from outlets and everything. That was touted as like terrible selling, but one of the best games of the year. Gears 1, I really wanted to pick. I thought about it for a long time. I haven't quite finished it yet, but everything I've experienced with it really points to it being one of the best games of that draft class there. I love Gears 1. It's so fantastic. Something special in the space, especially the year it came out. Games like Twilight Princess. While it's not my favorite Zelda game, I can see why it would be considered for Game of the Year. I think it's phenomenal. A really big, beefy story. Really dark. The darkest the series has ever been. But my personal pick is going to be Okami, beating out Zelda at its own game. I think Okami's, again, cel-shading art style seems to really be a common theme for me in terms of like longevity here, but it still looks fantastic to this day, and it played even better. The paintbrush mechanic, especially if you're playing it on the Wii, was just really something unique and special. It was a really fun game. I loved the boss design. I loved the dungeon design. I loved the world that they created. I think Okami beat out Zelda that year, so it's going to be my pick for Game of the Year that year. Next is going to be 2007. This is a really big deal for gaming. You had games like Halo 3, Mario Galaxy, the original Portal, Modern Warfare. You had Half-Life 2 Episode 2. You had Team Fortress 2. And of course, you had BioShock. A phenomenal class here. This was really tough to pick from. Mario Galaxy is most people's, like, if you're not going with Odyssey, you're probably going with Galaxy for the best 3D Mario game, or even 3D platformer of all time. It still holds so strong to this day. Replaying it on the 3D All-Stars thing, or even like emulating this game, is just still out of this world fantastic. Also, of course, Half-Life Episode 2 Part 2 has to have a really big mention here because it had like one of the biggest cliffhangers of all time, finished up the Half-Life 2 story as far as we've seen it. At least they did a lot with that story, but also the original Portal being phenomenal. Modern Warfare coming out, holy cow, like the pinnacle of online gaming. You had so many good picks here, but ultimately it has to go to BioShock, which was the Game of the Year winner, the Game Awards winner. I didn't mention that before. Game Awards did pick that as their Game of the Year, and I picked that as well. BioShock is unbeatable this year. There's nothing that came out or has come out since, really, that poses as many questions as BioShock does, and like explores those questions so thoroughly throughout the game. It's a pretty tight 12 to 14 hour story, but everything that it does it exactly right. Now you might argue like later on they had better like shooting mechanics, being able to swap from having a gun and your plasmid out at the same time really was better mechanically. But if you go back and just play this one, it has one of the best twists of all time that everybody knows by this point. I still think it is the best twist in all of gaming just because of how iconic it has become. I just love BioShock. I don't think there's anything quite like it in the space. Maybe with System Shock, you've got some comparisons there. Again, Ken Levine there. But I think BioShock is truly a standout game in the genre, like just for all time. It's just that fantastic. It's hard to pick anything else. Let's move on to 2008. Now, the Game Awards picked Grand Theft Auto 4, which I think is a very good, strong pick there. I did like Grand Theft Auto 4. I kind of fell off the series after San Andreas. I played the newer entries, but Grand Theft Auto 4 is where I really fell off the hardest. It was like an Xbox Xbox exclusive at one point. I think maybe it was just the DLC. I don't remember what the story was there, but I had a PlayStation at the time, so I kind of fell off Grand Theft Auto because it was exclusive for a while there. So that's not going to be my pick, but other hard hitters of the year include Dead Space, Gears 2, Metal Gear Solid 4, Fallout 3, Little Big Planet, Mario Kart Wii, Smash Bros. Brawl, and of course Persona 4. Now I love Smash Bros. Brawl. I think it's one of the coolest games in the series because of its story mode. Mario Kart Wii still holds a special place in most people's heart because it's like one of the best party games ever made. Most people will still hold on to memories of Mario Kart Wii because of how great selling the Wii was. Pretty much everybody had Mario Kart Wii. Persona 4 is so phenomenal. I love that game, one of the best RPGs of all time. I love how they do storytelling in that game. I think it's almost unmatched in the space, especially the time it came out. I think Dead Space is one of the best survival games of all time. Gears 2 told a really heart-wrenching story. As far as I know, I haven't finished that one. I haven't finished Gears 1 yet. So Gears 2, though, I know the story elements hit really, really hard for a lot of people. Ultimately, Metal Gear Solid 4, of course, being like held as one of the best in the series because of how unique it was, the giant cutscenes and everything. The storytelling was kind of unmatched. But for me, I had to go with Persona 4. I love this game. I played Persona 4 Golden on my Vita. I just think the storytelling is too strong. They did something really unique and special with this series. I think this was kind of the entrance for most people into like this was kind of like how they got into JRPGs for a lot of people, and then Persona 5 like pulled them all the way across the aisle there. Persona 4 was what really started it for a lot of people. You could maybe even argue Persona 3, but Persona 4 was what hooked me. After I finished that game, I knew that I needed to keep playing the Persona series. A Metaphor really captured my attention when it got announced. It's just something unique and special, so Persona 4 is going to be my pick for Game of the Year this year. Now, 2009 was another really strong year. The Game Award went to Uncharted 2, which I think is a perfect pick. Uncharted 2 is out of this world good. I think it's the best in the entire series. You also had other hitters like Arkham Asylum, Modern Warfare 2, Left 4 Dead 2. You had Dragon Age Origins. You had Minecraft, for heaven's sake, and Bowser's Inside Story, which is one of my favorites in the entire Mario RPG pantheon. My pick, actually, let's go over the other ones first. Minecraft obviously needs no introduction. I think its current incarnation is what you would say like, oh yeah, why didn't it win Game of the Year? Back in the day, it was something new and unique. It was an independent game. I think that maybe held it back in a lot of ways. The game that we have now is nothing like the game that came out back in the day. It still had all the building mechanics, of course, but it's become something so phenomenal and fresh and unique and everything now. It's hard to even distinguish them from each other if you go back and play the original version. So that one I don't think quite would have made it back in the day. Like even if you went back and retrospectively looked at these other games, it just wasn't exactly what it is today. You also had Dragon Age Origins, which is one of the best RPGs of all time from BioWare. They did something really special with this one. What am I looking at? Left 4 Dead 2, one of the best multiplayer like squad games you can ever play. It's still like up to this day and one of just the best ones. They've tried to emulate the formula since. They've never been able to crack it to the same degree. It's just something really unique. But my pick had to go to Arkham Asylum actually over Uncharted 2. As much as I love Uncharted, as much as I think it's a phenomenal series, Arkham Asylum was something special. Batman just really needed a break. There was not a lot of buzz around the game as an IP, the gaming IP itself. That we had like the Christopher Nolan trilogy starting to revive interest in the property. We had a lot of like the Super Nintendo era games, really fantastic. We hadn't seen a lot going forward. And then Rocksteady blew us away with Arkham Asylum. Some of the best combat we'd ever seen in third-person games. Like as great as Uncharted 2 was in terms of its storytelling and its spectacle, combat was something to be desired for sure. Batman Arkham Asylum did not have that problem. The detective mode paired with the phenomenal combat and the ways that you could solve puzzles just really knocked it out of the park here, and the world that they set up is just unmatched. It's still my favorite in the series, despite Arkham City maybe being better. I think Arkham Asylum told a really tight story with some of the best boss fights I've ever had in a game. It just really took the cake for me. Moving on to 2010, the Game Awards winner was Red Dead Redemption. Hard to beat that one. Other heavy hitters included Super Meat Boy, Fallout New Vegas, you had Mass Effect 2, God of War 3, Alan Wake, Galaxy 2, and Limbo. My pick is also going to be Red Dead Redemption. I don't know what else to say about this game. Red Dead was something truly unique and special. The Grand Theft Auto Wild West was like a moniker most people use, but it didn't tell the whole story. John Marston's story of redemption is something unique and special. The way that they play characters in this game is really unique and really phenomenal. I don't know how better to explain it. They just killed it. They took the formula that made Grand Theft Auto successful and told an even better story, one that we had never seen Rockstar tell before. And setting it in the Wild West, I think, did a lot to differentiate it from Grand Theft Auto and made a more focus on the storytelling aspect of things. I think you could have made a case for Limbo being like one of the most interesting and unique platformers ever, puzzle platformers ever. I think it's so special to this day. Galaxy 2 absolutely could have made a case. A lot of people hold this in higher regard than the original Galaxy game. Alan Wake is something really unique and special. To this day, I haven't played anything quite like it except for like Control and Alan Wake 2. Other games like God of War 3, one of the most brilliant spectacles on the PlayStation 3. Fallout New Vegas is still heralded as one of the best RPGs of all time for a great reason. And Super Meat Boy is like the most punishing, difficult indie platformer ever made. And I love that game. But ultimately, Red Dead had to win out here. Now let's move on to 2011. 2011 was Skyrim as the game of choice for the Game Awards. If you've been around this channel, you would know that I don't really love Skyrim. In retrospect, if you look back at it probably from that year, it did look like the best game of the year. And I do think that most people would agree there, but I want to posit another game that I'll get to in a minute. Let's talk about the other nominees here, as it were. We got Portal 2, you got Dark Souls, you got Arkham City, Dead Space 2, Gears of War 3, Little Big Planet 2, and The Binding of Isaac, which The Binding of Isaac in its current form, I played it first with Afterbirth Plus, and now the Repentance version, I think is one of the greatest games of all time. Since this is the original Binding of Isaac, I'm not going to judge it as Repentance here, I'm just going to judge it as its original form. That one's not going to win, but know that its current form in Repentance is my, like, a top 15 game of all time for me. So I want to make sure I honorable mentioned there. Little Big Planet was something really unique and special too back in the day. Gears of War 3 was like capping off the original trilogy. I think they did a phenomenal job from everything that I've heard of that. Dead Space 2 I think is even better than the original game. You've got Arkham City, which most people would say is the better sequel. Dark Souls is something totally unique. I mean, you had Demon Souls, of course, but this was a much better iteration of that formula. And the fact that it went multi-platform and went so big, it's still iconic to this day. I'm going to go play it pretty soon. I'm going to replay that game. I love the Dark Souls formula. So I really wanted to give it to him, but I'm going to give it to Portal 2. I have never played something that is so unique in terms of like melding my mind with its puzzles. They did such a good job with the Portal puzzles in this game. They took everything that made the original Portal so good and turned it up to 11 and then multiplied it by 10. You know, like they just really killed it. They knocked it out of the park. Has some of the most clever writing. It's really funny. It's really poignant. It's really unique in the way that they solve puzzles. They tackle puzzles in general, the different mechanics that they have, and the unique co-op like story mode that you have that's completely different from the single player experience where you have to have two different people. They just really made something special here. And I don't think they've made anything like Portal 2 ever since that game came out. I think it is better than Skyrim in most ways, especially with its staying power. I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but you like Skyrim probably more because of the mods than you like the base game. And I think Portal 2 as a base game is better than Skyrim. So let's move on to 2012 before I get any angry comments here. The award winner for that was The Walking Dead Season 1. Man, that's a good choice. Telltale's The Walking Dead was something truly special. I remember that capturing like the attention of the gaming world at large because it was so unique. The way they told such a heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching story here, it really was that special. I love what they did with that game. Other games that year include Journey. You've got Black Ops 2, Dishonored, Fez, Gravity Rush, and Little Big Planet on the Vita. As you can tell, I really like Little Big Planet. I love Little Big Planet on the Vita. I really wanted to pick that game. It's, I think, the best the series has ever been. Maybe you could argue on Little Big Planet 2, the creation engine on the PlayStation 3 was just better, so creation levels were better. I think that, like, an isolated experience, a single-player experience, and Little Big Planet Vita did it the best. Gravity Rush was something wholly unique on the Vita. I think they really did something special with the inverting gravity mechanic. Fez is still something that no one's been able to match to this day in terms of how unique and puzzly it is. I think you have other things like maybe Tunic or Death's Door that try and attempt to do that same kind of like really thought-provoking kind of puzzles. But Fez still stands alone as one of the most unique in that space for sure. Dishonored is a really phenomenal first-person like stealth action game. I still love it. I think it's the best in the franchise to this day. I think it's better than Deathloop. I think it's better than Dishonored 2, Death of the Outsider. Black Ops 2 you could make a case for, but my pick is going to be Journey. I think Journey did something really special here. Just watching this game unfold is a marvel. My wife played this one. She's not a big gamer, but I remember I told her about it. It was on my PlayStation account. I said, why don't you try it? And she really enjoyed it. She had a great experience from start to finish. The fact that you can like see other players too, and you don't get to talk with them, but you still interact with them and share this experience for a while until you go off and do your own thing is just pretty cool. I like what Journey is a lot. The soundtrack, the way it's just this all about the adventure thing, getting like the destination doesn't matter at all. It's just about the journey. I think they captured that perfectly. So it's going to be my pick for Game of the Year. Next, for 2013, their pick was Grand Theft Auto 5, which I think most people would agree, 100%. There's nothing quite like Grand Theft Auto 5, even to this day. We're waiting for Grand Theft Auto 6, and we're still playing Grand Theft Auto 5 because it's just that freaking good. Other picks include The Last of Us. You have BioShock Infinite. You have A Link Between Worlds. Oh my goodness, I love that game. And Tearaway on the Vita. Tearaway, if this wasn't such a stacked draft class, I honestly would have picked this over almost any other game. Tearaway is something truly unique and special. They ported it over to the PlayStation 4. I think it was good there, but it is best experienced on the Vita. It's my favorite Vita game of all time, hands down, no question. There's nothing that comes even close to it. It's just that unique and that special. A Link Between Worlds is a sequel to A Link to the Past, my favorite video game of all time. And I think that they made not only a worthy sequel, but the best 3DS game on the entire platform. They did something so special. The dungeon design is perfect in this game. The character work is phenomenal. They just really knocked it out of the park here. Grand Theft Auto 5, I don't think I have to say anything else about, but BioShock Infinite, while being a little bit divisive in a lot of ways, was a phenomenal evolution of the series. And the fact that they set it in a completely different setting, did a lot with the grind rail mechanic, I think it is something unique and special that should be celebrated more than it is talked down to. But my pick is going to be The Last of Us, because there's nothing else quite like that in terms of storytelling, in my personal opinion here. I have never played a game that hits quite as hard as The Last of Us, and I've played it a million times, but I just love this game so much. If you were there the year it came out and you played it, you got one of the most harrowing adventures of all time. And I said before I fell off the Grand Theft Auto wagon, Grand Theft Auto 5 is phenomenal, but nothing beats The Last of Us in my eyes. Let's move on to 2014. This is the first year that it was known as the Game Awards for Jeff Keighley here. They picked Dragon Age Inquisition as the winner. I don't love Dragon Age since Dragon Age Origins. I didn't like 2. I don't think Inquisition was all that phenomenal, and I obviously don't like the newest one. It's just really completely different. Its DNA is completely wild and not nearly as good as it used to be. But Dragon Age Inquisition, I think, was probably the last time it was really good. A lot of people love that game. Other picks for that year include, Divinity Original Sin, Shadow of Mordor, South Park: The Stick of Truth, The Binding of Isaac Rebirth here, and Mario Kart 8, as well as Shovel Knight. Now, Mario Kart 8, I think, needs no introduction. The deluxe version is one of the best-selling games of all time. It has had so much staying power. People still play that game and talk about it to this day. I've seen tons of comparisons to Mario Kart World. A lot of people preferring Mario Kart 8. It's just phenomenal. One of the best multiplayer racers ever. I think it still stands the test of time. Binding of Isaac Rebirth was the first introduction to consoles for the game. I think this was a really phenomenal thing for roguelikes in general. This was the introduction for a lot of people. Obviously, you had South Park: Stick of Truth, which was really funny. One of the deepest RPGs of the year as well. Shadow of Mordor with the phenomenal Nemesis system. Divinity Original Sin, one of the greatest CRPGs of that year or even that decade in a lot of ways. But my pick is going to be Shovel Knight. I love Shovel Knight. I think it's such a great callback not only to the NES days, SNES days of platforming, but it's a great game in its own right as well. There's so many phenomenal secrets to find and boss fights to encounter. The boss fights are really unique and the characters are so driven and so interesting. All the expansions that they put out afterward too just add to its pedigree. And if you played it on PlayStation, you have a secret boss fight with Kratos, which was out of this world cool. I think Shovel Knight did something that no other indie developer had done at that time. They just kind of broke into the mainstream in such a phenomenal way. I just can't pick anything else. Shovel Knight was undeniably my favorite game of that year. Let's move on to 2015 with the Game Awards winner being The Witcher 3, one of the best action-adventure games of all time. I don't think it needs a whole lot to talk about here. CD Projekt Red built one of the most interesting and creative worlds ever made. They have some of the best like side quests mixed into the main story. Like everything just melds together so beautifully. And a lot of the times it circumvents your expectations. You'll take on a side quest thinking you're doing one thing and have to do something completely different. Some wrench gets thrown in the works and all of a sudden you're throwing a baby in the fire. Like there's so much to talk about with The Witcher 3, but just let's suffice it to say one of the best games of all time. Other games that year include Undertale, Ori and the Blind Forest, Rocket League. You also had The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth. I'm going to keep talking about Binding of Isaac here. And also Bloodborne. Phenomenal games. Now, I'll skip Binding of Isaac. I won't bore you with any more of those. But Ori and the Blind Forest was like a revival of the 2D platformer in a lot of ways. Microsoft helming that one. I think they really killed it. I love that game. I think they knocked it out of the park. I think it's even better than Will of the Wisps. Ori and the Blind Forest really renewed my interest in that genre in a lot of ways, in that Metroidvania genre. I was so intrigued by it. I just could not wait for it to go multi-platform because I didn't have an Xbox at the time. Rocket League, I don't think needs any introduction here. One of the best multiplayer games of all time, a phenomenal esport to watch. I really loved Rocket League to this day. Undertale, I think if it had gone most other years, I would have wanted to pick Undertale because it's like one of the most interesting RPGs ever. Hails back to Earthbound, the Mother series, and does so with such beautiful characterization and phenomenal music. Toby Fox just made something truly unique and special. The idea of like the genocide and the pacifist runs and everything is just something special. But my pick, despite The Witcher 3 being one of the best games of all time, has to go to Bloodborne. This is my favorite From Software game of all time. Nothing else could trump this for that year. There's very little that could have come out that year to beat Bloodborne in my eyes. It's one of the best action RPGs of all time. I think they did a phenomenal job with the leveling system, with balancing aggression over defensive matters here. I love how aggressive the game is. I don't love the defensiveness in most of the Souls games, the From Software games, and Bloodborne really nailed like action, the action aspect of it. They crushed it. So Bloodborne's going to be my pick for Game of the Year that year. Next, let's move on to 2016. This one was tough. Overwatch was the Game Awards pick for Best Game of the Year. I don't love massive multiplayer games. I don't love the 5v5, 6v6, whatever I can't remember what the format was. I think it was 6v6. I think Overwatch 2 is 5v5. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong there. I don't love the Overwatch style of game, but that's one I played a lot of despite not loving that game. I really enjoyed playing as Mercy. I thought it was really fun to be the healer role. I liked the characters. I liked what they did with the game in so many aspects. I had a friend that was huge into Overwatch. Let me borrow an extra copy he had so he could play with his friends. I had a great time with Overwatch. And it really was something special. It really like captured the gaming world by storm in so many ways. So I can 100% see why they gave it to Game of the Year. Other picks included Dark Souls 3, Titanfall 2, Doom 2016. You had Inside. You had Ratchet & Clank remake. There were so many phenomenal picks that year. My pick is going to go to Inside, though. Despite Ratchet & Clank being a phenomenal remake, some of the most fun I've had of the game that year, Doom 2016 being such a phenomenal revival of the series, Titanfall 2 unfortunately having like one of the best games of the year and coming out the worst launch window ever, I think Inside did something that no one has ever done. Limbo was something unique and special. Inside did it way better. Not only told like a really crazy, creepy environmental storytelling like to the max here. They did it while like just by playing this 2D platformer where you have to solve a few puzzles. It doesn't seem like this would culminate into like the Game of the Year winner, but it is something unique and something really beautiful in the space that I've never seen anybody do since. Little Nightmares, I think, tried to emulate that in a lot of ways and did a great job with it, but Inside is special because it tells a really creepy, dark story without having to say any words at all. And they do it all through the environment, all through the character work, and the ending is just, it will stick with you for a very long time. So Inside will actually be my pick for Game of the Year in 2016. Let's move on to 2017, with the Game Awards giving Breath of the Wild Game of the Year, which, oh boy, what a good class this was. Breath of the Wild was a launch title for the Switch, last game on the Wii U. Maybe it wasn't the last first-party game on the Wii U. I'll have to check that one, actually. But like the last Zelda game on the Wii U, actually the only Zelda game on the Wii U outside of the ports. You had other games like Mario Odyssey, Cuphead came out that year. You had What Remains of Edith Finch. You had Hollow Knight, Persona 5, Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 single-handedly revived the Resident Evil franchise, putting it in first-person perspective, creepy enemies. Persona 5 evolved the Persona series to like mainstream popularity and did something really unique with the formula. I love how stylish it is. What Remains of Edith Finch is one of the best walking simulator games I've ever played. It's just so brilliant. Hollow Knight's one of the best Metroidvanias ever made. We're still waiting for Silksong. We're still waiting with bated breath because of how phenomenal Hollow Knight was. Mario Odyssey obviously is just out of this world. I'm playing it again right now. It feels like a brand new game. It's so good. Cuphead, perfect like classic 50s movie art style with brutal gameplay mechanics. So much fun. I have to give it to Breath of the Wild though. I mean, what more can be said about Breath of the Wild? Evolved the Zelda franchise in such a beautiful way, told a really unique and hard-hitting story. They just knocked it out of the park with the open world. I still think it's the best open world game to this day. I don't think there's any competition except maybe Tears of the Kingdom, but I love Breath of the Wild. I think it was the runaway winner. It's a shame that a lot of these games came out this year because almost any of them could have won Game of the Year if Breath of the Wild hadn't come out that year. Let's move on to 2018 with God of War being the Game Awards winner. God of War 2018, of course, on the PlayStation 4. Other games include Red Dead 2, Smash Ultimate, Celeste, and Dragon Ball FighterZ. I love all of these games. FighterZ is one of my favorite, 3v3 games of all time, one of my favorite fighting games of all time. I think it's so unique, so special, the way that they did launchers and specials and everything. They just really killed it with that game, and using the Dragon Ball property to its fullest potential. I think they really killed it. I think it's the best Dragon Ball game of all time. Celeste is one of the best indie games of all time. The platforming is crazy, it's difficult, it's brutal, but it all serves the storytelling of Celeste trying to get to the top of the mountain. So phenomenal. Smash Ultimate's the best fighting game of all time. I do Smash Saturday on this channel. I don't need to talk about it anymore. It's the best fighting game ever. I love Smash Ultimate, even with my gripes with it. And of course, we've got Red Dead Redemption 2, one of the most visually stunning games ever made, one of the best stories ever made. I think what a phenomenal follow-up to Red Dead 1. And of course, you've got God of War, a total revamp of the entire series that just kind of evolved Kratos as a character and introduced him as a father. There's so much to do in that game. And my pick is going to be God of War. Despite Red Dead Redemption 2 being so phenomenal, it's like neck and neck for me. I think it was for most people. A lot of people were upset with God of War winning because Red Dead Redemption 2 was such a phenomenal story. It was so good that my wife bought it because we saw it at a friend's house. She bought it for me because she thought how gorgeous it looked, and then stayed and we played the entire game together. She watched me play the whole 60-hour story of that game. It was just that special. But God of War did something really unique, and maybe it was because I became a dad around the same time. Maybe it was because I just love Kratos as a dad. But I think the evolution of Kratos as a character, Atreus as this new character in the series, seeing that other side of Kratos, and the combat being totally unique and different from the original God of War, the story beats hit perfectly. I just think they created a perfect video game in God of War, so I could not give it to anything else. Moving on to 2019, the Game Award winner was Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice from Software, which is my second favorite From Software game ever. Love that game. Other games that came out this year include Outer Wilds, Mario Maker 2, Control, Resident Evil 2 Remake, and Disco Elysium. A phenomenal class. I think going against Sekiro was really difficult. My picks went down to, as much as I love Mario Maker 2 and its evergreenness, Control is one of the most bonkers games I've ever played. It got me into the Remedy universe in such a big way that now I've played Alan Wake 1 and 2. I'm so excited about the Max Payne remake that they're coming out with. Resident Evil 2 is one of the best remakes of all time. Outer Wilds and Disco Elysium were my picks, and I still am going back and forth. I'm trying to I want to change my pick right now. I'm not going to. The Outer Wilds is one of the most beautiful exploration games of all time. The way that they do just discovering things and trying to put things together based on your discoveries and just playing as much as you want to play. You can get all the way to the eye of the universe and discover all of this crazy stuff that's going on, or you can just explore space and all these different planets and what they offer. It's so unique and special. There's nothing like it in the space. But there's also nothing like Disco Elysium, which in my humble opinion, is like the best CRPG of all time. You play as a drunken detective in this like little hostel that you're trying to investigate a murder that's going on, that has so many twists and turns, so much characterization, and your character constantly falling forward into like, you think that your character like has some kind of superpower as this detective, but really is just a drunkard, kind of a mess up. He's really good at his job, but he's also like a screw up in every other way. It's so unique. It's so beautiful. I use that word a lot in this, and I think that's what makes Game of the Year is their uniqueness and the way that they stick the landing. This game sticks the landing perfectly for me. There's nothing like it in terms of its characterization and its storytelling. I've never played anything like this in this space. It's what got me into CRPGs in the first place. Disco Elysium had to be my pick here, despite how phenomenal Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is. Let's move on to 2020, which was going to be The Last of Us Part 2 for the Game Award winner. Man, what a hard one to follow up here. Despite its controversy, The Last of Us Part 2 is still one of my favorite games of all time. I think it's a phenomenal follow-up to The Last of Us Part 1. I think it tells a beautiful story, and getting to experience it from the perspective of Ellie and Abby, I think is so phenomenal. I think Season 2 of The Last of Us, the TV series, did not stick the landing in any way, shape, or form. Nothing like what The Last of Us Part 2 did on the PlayStation 4, excuse me. Other fantastic hard hitters that year include Hades, Spelunky 2, Ghost of Tsushima. You had Crash Bandicoot 4. Holy crap, we waited that long for that sequel. And the Demon's Souls remake. It was really difficult. And I am tempted here. I'm very tempted. Crash 4 was phenomenal. I think it was a great sequel. It wasn't going to win Game of the Year, but I think it was a very worthy follow-up. It was worth the wait. Demon's Souls is a phenomenal remake. Spelunky 2 is like one of the best roguelites in the space. Hades is probably like the best in the space besides The Binding of Isaac. I love what they did in terms of like the combat and everything. I struggled between the Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2. And right now I think I am going to change. I wrote down something else. Ghost of Tsushima is something really special. It's something phenomenal. It's something really gorgeous. The way that they built this world, the way that Sucker Punch built something truly like breathtaking in this world. Some of the best combat mechanics I've ever had. Like some of the best storytelling, some of the hardest hitting beats, despite The Last of Us telling a very emotional, heart-wrenching story. I'm going to go with Ghost of Tsushima this time. I originally had Last of Us Part 2, but I'm going to change my mind. It's one of those neck and neck moments. This is Red Dead 2 and God of War all over again for me. I'm going to go with Ghost of Tsushima just because it's something unique and different and something I've never seen before. Last of Us Part 2 evolves the way that you play the game in a lot of ways. It does a really great job in that respect. I think the storytelling is so heart-wrenching, and the ending left me like in tears, bawling on the floor. I could not handle it. But Ghost of Tsushima is also very harrowing, really beautiful, really poignant, and the world that they built is just needs to be celebrated more. So I'm actually going to go with Ghost of Tsushima. And I'm going to flip over my paper here. 2021. The Game of the Year winner for the Game Awards was It Takes Two. I have not played it. I have not played a lot of co-op games. I want to play It Takes Two. I want to play Split Fiction, but I haven't played it. So it will not be my Game of the Year pick. But everything I've seen looks absolutely phenomenal. And for a co-op game to win Game of the Year in a place where co-op doesn't really have a place anymore was really special and spectacular. I was really happy for the developer there and really happy for gaming as a whole. Other big hitters include Metroid Dread, Rift Apart, the Ratchet & Clank game, Psychonauts 2, Resident Evil Village, Returnal, and Death's Door. All stellar entries. Death's Door is a phenomenal top-down action RPG, one of the coolest I've ever played. I remember buying it on sale and having the time of my life with it. Returnal is such a cool third-person shooter roguelite, one of the best games on the PlayStation 5. If you have not played it, 100% do it, and go check out my second review on this channel. It's really old. It's not nearly as good as my other stuff I love that game. If you want to hear my full thoughts on that one. Resident Evil Village is a great celebration of the series. I don't think it was going to win Game of the Year by any stretch, but I love that game in a lot of ways. I love Psychonauts 2. We waited so long for a follow-up, and we finally got it, and it was fantastic. So good. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is the best game in the franchise, in my personal opinion. It does everything right. Perfect follow-up to Ratchet & Clank 2016. But my pick is going to be Metroid Dread. I couldn't pick anything else here. Metroid Dread is just the perfect Metroidvania, the perfect way to come back into the space and say, this is why Metroid is the Metroid in Metroidvania. Like, it's just so perfect. Ravenbeak as an antagonist is perfectly terrifying and wonderful. The new mechanics they introduced are fantastic. Metroid Dread does everything right as a Metroidvania. I'm going to go play it again because it's just that freaking good. Let's move on to 2022 with Elden Ring being the Game Awards winner for Game of the Year. You had other hard hitters like Ragnarok, Tunic, Sifu, Pentiment, and the Kirby and the Forgotten Lands. All fantastic entries here. I love all of these ones. It's Kirby Forgotten Lands. Now that I'm writing it down, I feel like that would came out in like 2019. Maybe I'm. If I got that one wrong, let me know in the comment section down below. That might be a whoopsie on my part. But if not, that absolutely deserves a spot here. If it's a different Kirby game, whoops, didn't mean to do that. But let's talk about the other ones. Pentiment is one of the coolest Obsidian RPGs they've ever made. It's something totally unique and special. Sifu is such a phenomenal action RPG. I have never played anything like that. Slowclap really outdid themselves. Besides their previous game, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. That game was cool. This seems like the perfect evolution of that formula into something really special with the revenge arc story and everything. Love Sifu. I played the heck out of that game. Also, Tunic being a really special top-down RPG, a mysterious game, kind of like Fez, like I alluded to earlier. Then you had God of War Ragnarok, a follow-up to 2018, one of the best games of all time in my opinion, and Elden Ring going at it head-to-head. Most people have these as the two. While I love Ragnarok when it did, I don't feel like it was quite as good as God of War 2018. And Elden Ring was the perfect evolution of the From Software formula. So I'm going to agree here that Elden Ring was the correct choice for Game of the Year. I just think it's that special. I love Elden Ring. The fact that it's so enormous with some of the hardest boss fights, some of the coolest boss fights in the entire franchise for From Software here. I think Elden Ring was the runaway winner for Game of the Year. Let's move on to 2013 with Baldur's Gate 3 taking the award from the Game Awards. Hard to beat there, but it did not come without a lot of like hard hitters coming at it. You had Resident Evil 4 Remake, you had Sea of Stars, Alan Wake 2, Cocoon, you had Dave the Diver making a random appearance, Dead Space Remake, Pizza Tower, Pikmin 4, Hi-Fi Rush, Mario Wonder, and Tears of the Kingdom, a follow-up to Breath of the Wild, which a lot of people said was even better than Breath of the Wild because of the new building mechanic. I love Tears of the Kingdom. I did a review on that if you want to hear my full thoughts on that. Mario Wonder, I also did a review on that one. The best return to form, the best 2D Mario game we've gotten in a very long time. Hi-Fi Rush is one of the coolest independent games ever made. So glad it's multi-platform. So glad the studio was saved. Pikmin 4 is one of the coolest entries in the franchise. I love Ochi, he's so cute. Pizza Tower, perfect way to honor Wario Land 4 and do a spiritual successor there. One of the coolest 2D puzzle games. For sure, it went viral for a very good reason. Dead Space Remake is probably the best remake of all time. Resident Evil 4 might be also the best remake of all time. Both phenomenal choices. I don't think Dave the Diver or Cocoon were going to make it, but Cocoon, I did a review on that recently. Phenomenal storytelling. Dave the Diver is really quirky and interesting and fun. Sea of Stars, one of the coolest RPGs ever. Alan Wake 2, I'm just about to finish. Can't wait to play the final draft on that. One of the coolest and scariest games I've ever played. I might even wager to say it's the scariest game I've ever played because of how it torments the player as well as the in-game player. It's something beautiful and special. If you haven't played Alan Wake 2, I encourage you to go and buy it and support Remedy because they make some of the best games in the business. But I'm going to give it to Baldur's Gate 3 as well. There's nothing quite like it. As far as CRPGs go, this is the top of the list. This is right there with Disco Elysium in my eyes. I have played the heck out of Baldur's Gate 3, and everybody I've talked to that plays it says it's just that good. It really is. You can play it like any way that you want. You can play as crazy or as conservative as you want to. The world is your oyster in this game. It's D&D at its best in game form. They have not been able to do it quite like this, and Baldur's Gate 3 just takes the cake. I don't think there's anything quite close to it. Let's go to 2014. The last Game of the Year award winner was Astro Bot. Other hard hitters include Balatro. You've got The Lost Crown, Prince of Persia game that's heavily underrated. Metaphor ReFantazio. You had Helldivers 2. You had Black Myth Wukong. You got Echoes of Wisdom. This was tough. Echoes of Wisdom was fantastic. I loved it. It wasn't going to win Game of the Year for me. Wukong was probably the closest contender with Astrobot for most people. One of the best action RPGs people have seen in a very long time. Metaphor ReFantazio is like a spiritual successor to the Persona series, or like a spin-off in a lot of ways. Most people had that as their best RPG, 100%. Lost Crown is the most underrated Metroidvania of the generation. If you haven't played it, go buy it. Please support that game. We need Ubisoft making more of those games instead of more Assassin's Creed. Please, more Prince of Persia Lost Crown style games. Like, seriously, you have the time of your life. It's the best Metroidvania since Metroid Dread. Balatro obviously took the world by storm in terms of how addictive it was. Helldivers 2 being like the best multiplayer game you could play. I'm going to give it to Astrobot. I love 3D platformers, and making one that rivals like Mario Odyssey or Mario in general, and making the best Mario game since Mario Odyssey is something special and unique, and I think Team Asobi needs to be praised for that. The fact that they're adding more content to it now, and that's just like this beautiful celebration of all of PlayStation's IPs, I think really deserves a lot of praise. And now for the bonus, I'm going to give my frontrunners for 2025 what I think is going to win Game of the Year, and my personal picks. What I think is going to win is either going to be Expedition 33, I think Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I think has a really good shot too for how expansive and huge it is. You've got DK Bonanza, Prime 4, you've got Split Fiction, you've got the Oblivion remake, the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. There's a lot in there that could absolutely win. I think Expedition 33 will win Game of the Year because of how much of a breakout success it was, storming onto the scene, one of the best soundtracks in all of gaming, one of the best RPGs out there. My personal pick is either going to be Donkey Kong Bonanza or Prime 4. I think Prime 4 has an actual shot at winning the game award. It'd be my pick, I think. DK Bonanza, just because my bias for DK, I've been waiting for that game for decades now. I think really could have a chance though because of the Mario Odyssey vibes and the way that Nintendo's been doing game philosophy of 3D worlds lately. But Prime 4, I've been waiting for that game for actually 17 years at this point. And I think that the Prime series is just that good. We've seen what Prime Remastered did for the franchise itself, but Prime 4 looks like a beautiful evolution of that. And I think it actually has a real chance of winning, despite how stacked some of these other games are. Even like Ghost of Yotei that's going to be coming out. I think that might be a 2026 one, if I'm not mistaken, but it could be coming out this year. Either way, if it comes out in 2026, I think that will be a front runner for sure. Ghost of Yotei has a very good chance. But Prime 4 is my outside pick for actually winning Game of the Year, and probably is going to be my choice. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think. That was a 51-minute video. Again, if you got all the way to the end, thank you so much. You're awesome. Thanks for contributing to the watch time. Please like and subscribe. It took a ton of work. It was so much fun to do this. I loved making this video. If you like the really long form content stuff, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll do more stuff like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.